I'd like to start by saying that this will contain spoilers. If you haven't played I, the Somnium Files, I highly encourage you to play it before you watch this video. Now with that said, Kotaro Uchikoshi is a video game director and writer who is very well known for his video game series Zero Escape. 9 Hours, 9 Persons, and 9 Doors is the first game in this series where 9 odd characters are trapped on a sinking ship and have to find a way out. Think of it as a very large escape room. Now fast forward a few years and you have I, the Somnium Files, which is a murder mystery, and like all murder mysteries, your goal is to capture the murderer. 999 is Uchikoshi's first game as a director. I, the Somnium Files is his latest. I want to know how these two games differ. I want to know if he's grown as a developer and will continue to grow. So I'm here to find out where we are now. 999 puts you in the shoes of Junpei Tenmyoji, a 21-year-old college student who was kidnapped along with 8 other people and put on a sinking ship. Junpei has to find his way out through trials and tribulations and a little bit of time travel. His ultimate goal is to escape his captor Zero, while a big problem isn't much of a concern to him. In I, you see through Date Kaname's eyeball. He is a sinker, someone who dives into people's minds. He works for a secret company under the police known as Abyss. Date has been put temporarily into the investigation team to solve a murder that is closely related to a series of murders that happened 6 years ago and is a concern to Date. What makes these two games similar? What makes them different? What's improved? Let's find out. First up, story. 999's story is a complex one. There is so much happening in the story that people may fail to see its patterns. As Ralph Koster suggests, a game that is too hard would be too noisy or boring to a certain player. I bring this up because that's what 999's story is. There's just too much happening, which will inevitably drive players away. It starts off like this. You are trapped in a sinking ship and you have to escape with these people you don't know. Seems simple, right? Well, this is where it gets tricky. 999 is a trial in multiple endings. Just like many other games, but just like many other games, the writers want you to see their whole story. The way Uchikoshi did this was through time travel. Junpei is an Esper, which is similar in nature to a time traveler. An Esper's mind travels, but not the body. This is what happens to Junpei in every path. His mind jumps and he remembers things from separate timelines. The idea of time travel, not even really time travel, adds a heavy layer of confusion to the story, if not done properly. And then you add on top of that, everyone's an Esper apparently, and there was an experiment 10 years ago, and this was all just a clever plot to save a boy's sister who's been with you this whole time, escaping with you, but isn't really there because she died 10 years ago before this escape even happened. It's really confusing. It doesn't really make sense, and there are plot holes. Is it a bad story? Not at all. But there's too much Uchikoshi tried doing to really make the story stand out. I, the Somnium Files story is still complex, but less so. While it's still a trial in multiple endings, you are solving this murder, and there is still something to that weird mind-hopping thing, but the reason was explained in a little more of an acceptable way. The murderer is technically not one person, but they also are. A single person is mind-hopping from person to person, all to reach Date, because apparently the person who is in Date's body is not really Date, and the murderer is actually Date. As you can see, it's just as confusing, but it's all explained a little bit better throughout the story. In the simplest way, staying in the sink machine too long will swap people's minds. And it works. While in 999, the sister's existence doesn't really get explained ever. She's just there and then she's not there. At the end of the day, I's story is better, hands down. There's still some really weird things in I, the Somnium Files, but it never gets so weird like it does in 999. Did I mention that there was a mummy in 999 for some reason? So the point goes to I, the Somnium Files. Next up, mechanics. 999 is a mystery puzzle visual novel. The dynamic of the game is to solve and escape. You have the lengthy visual novel portion, recently fully voiced due to the remaster, and then you have these smaller puzzles that are thrown in and are determined by the decision you make. Do I want to go through door 4 or door 5? Within these puzzles lie event triggers, along with mini-games consisting of smaller puzzles like game atoms. Each puzzle is frustrating, and despite the in-game time limit of you have 9 hours to escape, they don't translate in the puzzles. You don't have a time limit there. And so you can take your sweet time being frustrated on these puzzles. This game also relies heavily on actual mathematics. All games are mathematical, but this game makes you know you're doing a math equation with the use of digital roots and the use of root letters, which are a pain. I've played this game 3 times and I still can't wrap my head around it. While it's still a mystery puzzle game, the dynamic is to solve and rescue. Arguably also the case in 999, but you don't actually find that out until the end when you're told you're saving this girl who has been with you this whole time. In rather than escaping a room, you are diving into a character's mind. Here, there are timed events. You have 360 seconds to solve the puzzle or else you fail. Yes, you can kind of turn back the clock, but the consequences are predominantly there. This makes the puzzle portion far more intricate. The puzzles are easier than in 999, but the stakes are still raised and will penalize you when you make the quote-unquote wrong decision. There are less puzzles in however, there is more gameplay than in 999. Quick time events are thrown in throughout the game when Dante's in deep doo-doo. And since it's a murder mystery, there are also investigative and interrogation moments like in Ace Attorney. Both of these games lack a little bit in this gameplay versus story, and it's disappointing because the puzzles that are there are incredibly fun. It is a visual novel, so it makes sense, especially in Eye of the Somnium Files. However, if I have to give a point to one, I give it to both. Neither are without their casualties, but neither are better than the other due to how different they are. Next up, we have characters. 999's characters try really hard. You've got the Yorda character, but without the Yorda effect. You've got the big buff guy who tries to brute force his way through, and also has amnesia because it would ruin the plot if he didn't. The character that is scantily clothed, and the jerk who ends up being the baddie. They aren't very dynamic, and this is the Zero Escape series' downfall. They may have these elaborate backstories, but when they are all so cliched, the backstory and build-up gets lost in translation. With Ai's characters, they are more dynamic, but not by much. The Yorda character is still pretty useless, but you've got a rebellious 12-year-old and a rebellious AI that lives in your eye socket, a boss who won't tell you anything, and the senator who hates your guts. Are you sensing a theme here? They aren't cliched, and they're more dynamic. They aren't the same kind of rebellious, but they all hate you. That doesn't make them super likable. The point goes to I for sure, because despite all that, at least the characters of I aren't cliched, and they do get better. Interactivity. Neither of these games are truly emergent, while they are highly interactive. Because of how heavily strategic they are, even with their multiple endings, these games feel very linear. A little bit less so. 999, due to this time travel, it all feels kind of linear. Because Junpei knows everything that's happening. Even though they're different timelines, he still remembers everything because he's time traveling and mind hopping. It fools you into thinking it's not linear, but because of the way Uchikoshi made this time travel, it essentially is. Even with the branching pathways there are. At least in I, the endings feel good. And they feel like endings. And and he doesn't really know everything that he's going into. Each ending feels unique, while in 999, each ending is I'm dead or I escape. And yes, that's the ultimate goal, but maybe there could have been endings where only one escaped, or 2 escaped, or 5 escaped. And so by that, I have to give the point to I, simply because it is more emergent and interactive than 999, but not by much because it's not an emergent game. In conclusion, I is a huge improvement to 999. Do I think that it's improved so drastically that Uchikoshi has fixed all of his problems? No, not really. He fixed some. He tried to fix some and some didn't work. But just like everybody else, he has a long way to go. Zero Escape is a game for a niche audience, while I is more accessible to many different people, and this is probably Uchikoshi's biggest achievement. Uchikoshi will continue to make great games and improve upon them, like we've seen with I and 999. And I personally can't wait to see what he comes up with next.